if you think about human plant use as a spectrum, from wild plants like poison ivy that you mostly just avoid. I have heard there are economic uses of poison ivy, but you could just non-economic plants, they're out there, we don't use them. To things that we gather, through things that are planted but not really tended, so you can call that kind of cultivated. And at some point, when humans are gathering the seeds and planting the seeds, you're not planting, usually not planting a random sample of the seeds. You plant the best seeds and you plant them in the good locations and you tend them and take the weeds away, and that changes the architecture, as we're starting to see in some of the Plum Bayou Garden in Arkansas, where they're documenting this kind of thing. Eventually, human intervention in the life cycle of the plants changes the plants, usually in terms of making the seeds become bigger, because when you save your seeds and you plant the best seeds, the biggest seeds, the seeds that have the characteristics that you want, the thicker rind, the bigger sunflower seeds, the thinner seed coats on the chenopodium. Domestication is when humans have intervened sufficiently in the life cycle of a plant that its form has become changed in a way that benefits humans. Maize and beans and squash, right? Three sisters agriculture. And I think that's my first vision, and I think a lot of people's first vision when you say Caddo farming or Indian agriculture. But that's very much a historical moment of corn and beans and squash. As Rachel alluded to earlier, it's not the beginning, nor is it the end, or contemporary Caddo agriculture. So I wanted to go through just real quick chronological order some of these crops. Anybody know what the first domesticate in Eastern North America was? The earliest is actually squashes. And of course, what a wild squash is a gourd, because it's the process of domestication that's producing that thicker rind, the thick, sweet, succulent rind that is the difference between a gourd and a squash. They're both genus Cucurbita. And so squashes first. Bottle gourds are complex. The first bottle gourd shows up about 5,000 years ago on the east coast of Florida. It may have simply floated across the ocean from Africa, which is where these bottle gourds are native to. The genetics has been seesawing back and forth as to what exactly is going on, but the squashes and gourds are the first, followed by Eleanor. Chenopodium and sunflower. Yeah, chenopodium and sunflower coming in maybe 4,000 years ago, and those are indigenous domesticates. Where's our chenopodium? Back there. Yeah, there's some over there. Chenopodium. You may know it by the name goosefoot. Chenopodium is the genus name, and this is Chenopodium berlandieri, is the one that was domesticated in the east, and then a little later you get the amaranth. Coming in. That's all, again, something that's cultivated in Mexico and seems to be cultivated here as well, but it's a little bit later. Corn, earliest corn is about 2,000 years ago in the eastern woodlands. Tobacco also shows up about 2,000 years ago. And these are both domesticates, but they were not domesticated in the eastern United States. Corn, of course, domesticated in southern Mexico, and Nicotiana rustica, domesticated in South America. Corn, squash, and beans. Beans are the last. We don't have bean dates in East Texas until the 16th century. Yeah. Now, there are reasons to think that they were probably here earlier, that people were probably using them earlier than that, but they dry naturally on the vine. You don't need to bring them in and expose them to fire. There's not a lot of processing that would result in their being visible archaeologically. But these are objectively late, and linguists have looked at the words for beans and decided that they all seem to be like a late loan word for beans. So and that's true of squash and corn too, that linguists tell us that squash seems to be the earliest word, and followed by corn and then beans. So this whole corn and beans and squash really just comes together as an agricultural complex just before we have Europeans who are writing about this stuff, and then it immediately changes because you add watermelons and peaches and pomegranates and figs. So three-sistered agriculture, it's lovely lovely and a beautiful cropping system that works together.